Hey everybody, it's Wednesday. I'm exhausted. It was not the easiest day yesterday. I'll tell the patrons the whole story. It's personal. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Lana K. People got mad at me yesterday for that, but this is my business, so don't hate the player, hate the game. I know every time I even mention the name Jordan Peterson, RIP my mentions. I expected that. So I'm not going to cry victim. I am going to appreciate the people who admitted they had to rewrite the comments multiple times so it wasn't a string of profanity. I appreciate that. I know that takes effort, and I want to reward that. I think a lot of people responded emotionally, which again, I expect from people who look up to Jordan Peterson, because as I said in the previous video, that's what he inspires. I do want to tackle one particular criticism as intelligent people, well-meaning people can respectfully disagree on this point. There is no hard and fast right or wrong answer, but I do want to explain where I'm coming from because people bothered to write respectful criticisms of what I did, and instead of just launching a string of profanity. Don't get me wrong, there were some strings of profanity, but other people didn't. Now, a lot of people agreed that there are some sketchy things and questions need to be asked. So I'm not saying this is a monolith. It's equally divided right now, and that's usually a sign of a review bomb. But hey, I'm bargaining. I'm talking in good faith here. There is an ongoing dialogue within journalists who care about ethics, about how much scrutiny of public figures is fair and where the privacy line is drawn. What is appropriate speculation? What is over the line? And it is sometimes more art than science. It is a judgment call. You may have seen the brouhaha surrounding Kobe Bryant and how he was memorialized. I didn't wade into that one because it's way outside my wheelhouse. I mean, sports, I love my basketball. I personally was very torn, but it's not, I'll say, everybody has to make, again, it's more art than science. Personally, I just shut my mouth about the stuff from 20 years ago because, not for him, but because his daughters and, his daughters lost a sister and his wife lost a daughter, and that is a whole degree of magnitude. But I don't think that the people that did reference it did anything wrong, because it's a matter of public record, and I don't think they deserve the hate they took. It wasn't the decision I made, but again, this is a topic where respectful, reasonable people can disagree. There's no moral failing here. Now, Jordan Peterson is a different category because Jordan Peterson is not an athlete. Usually, athletes, in cases like Colin Kaepernick, they can heavily influence the political dialogue. But athletes are no longer seen as sort of ethical or intellectual role models. Someone who is a, self-help person who part of his credibility comes from his credentials, being a psychology professor. That's different. Somebody who is shaping minds, it's very important that their ideas and the ideas connected to them are scrutinized. And again, I again said, I hope he gets well. I hope everything's okay. I did say that. So people who criticize my speculation kind of left that part out. Maybe they didn't watch far enough in. But one of the, and this is just personal, one of the big disappointments of this whole thing to me, because I like to find the good in people who I intellectually oppose or, ethically oppose. And the good I saw in Jordan Peterson was that all of his other faults aside, he seemed to sincerely love his wife. He does still love his wife. He mentioned her in interviews a lot, and not the typical politician, my wife and I. He talked about conversations they had, dinner table, kitchen table conversations they had. There was a closeness communicated that I found very human and admittedly endearing. And so that's one of the reasons I think that where the wife is important. Because it's strange. And if you want to think that the somewhat joking, who could blame her for leaving after all of this? If you think that's in poor taste, taste is not ethics, taste is taste, right? Comedy is subjective. Everybody has their lines, but it is fair to ask questions about where she is and acknowledge that her whereabouts not being known, all things considered, is a pretty serious issue. Like I said, if you think that the sort of joking around comments of who could blame her if she left him after all of this, it does happen that people who survive conditions that they thought would kill them do have a radical new view on things. But there's a deeper level to it. And I'm not saying this is not a retaliatory thing. I am saying that, one, the family made this situation public. This was not reporters digging into their privacy and digging up dirt. This was them making a statement through a video they posted online. They opened this up to scrutiny. That's very important. It's very important. The minute someone goes public, everything about their statement is open for scrutiny because it is now a public statement. People have to verify that public statement. The other thing is that, and this is where I want to word this very, very carefully because I don't want it to seem retaliatory. I don't like the people that have said, good, they're kind of cheering that he's ill. I shared a column on Twitter that Michael Corrin wrote, and I thought it was beautiful, about compassion for him. I don't think it's good that people are cheering that the man is ill, that the man is addicted to, clonazepam. And I think it's an incredibly ironic twist that the one thing the daughter didn't want spreading was the shorthand. She said, this is not a psychological addiction. And the headlines are Jordan Peterson is addicted to benzodiazepines. But things like this are open. It is fair to say this hypothetical alternative is more plausible than the offered stuff. Some people argued with me on the whole, no, you can survive terminal cancer thing. This is where I hit words have to mean something. Terminal cancer to me is cancer you die from. I know someone who was told they were going to die from brain cancer. They had a miraculous spontaneous remission. So they didn't have terminal cancer. Like, maybe the wording is an indication that she actually is still dying. Now, that's not the last public thing we got from the family. And again, I will say that if she is critically ill and he is in a completely different country, something is not right there. Something is really not right there. Because as I said, one of the good things I can absolutely unequivocally say about him is he really seemed to love his wife. So I stand by the speculation. If you were offended by the joking around, like I said, that's your bag. I sympathize with your perspective. I see your perspective. I'm not going to apologize for it. And here's why. The people who are telling me that what I said was in poor taste and cruel and not okay and unfair speculation, you're fans of a guy who engages in wild, rampant, unfounded speculation that has hurt a lot of people, especially regarding his comments about trans people and non-Christian religions, but especially trans people. He speculated wildly about Bill C-16. And like I said, I'm not saying I'm doing this to him to get him back. No, I'm just saying it's really hypocritical to call me out on that. Well, quasi-worshipping a guy who speculated about the mental health and the legitimacy of an entire category of people, and speculated about all the horrible things that were going to happen to him because he was going to stand up and he was not going to be compelled to use pronouns that he didn't think were correct. His compelled speech argument was nonsense, period, but he's not a legal scholar and he completely misrepresented what Bill C-16 was. And then politicians who opposed the bill used his misrepresentations in their opposition. He did harm. Now, fortunately, the bill still passed, but that was really disturbing. And keep in mind, guys, if you're not outside of Canada, there's certain comments, there's certain interviews you may not have seen regarding that. And if you saw any coverage of Bill C-16 on American news, it usually came through the right-wing media, which badly represented what the bill did. Again, the bill only added a new protected group to the Human Rights Code: gender identity and gender expression. It did not change how these things are prosecuted. It did not mean suddenly people were going to get thrown in jail for bigotry. That doesn't happen unless they actually commit violence. You know, this is also the Human Rights Code that found against Jessica Yaniv on that whole bikini waxing case. So we do have a semblance of sanity in this country still. You do not automatically lose your job for slipping up and misidentifying someone. People can holler about microaggressions all they want, but you don't lose your job as an accident. Being fired for bigotry, the onus is on the company to prove willful and deliberate intent, or you can sue them for wrongful dismissal. Don't confuse it with the case in England. That was in England. The fact that Bill C-16 passed, he didn't drop his objections. He was on the speaking tour. And not only is he walking around a free man, health issues aside, but he kept his job, indicates that all the speculation about how trans activism was authoritarian and he argued a slippery slope to fascism. I mean, not only is that a logical fallacy, but it just wasn't true. And he hurt a lot of people with that speculation. And again, I'm not arguing two wrongs make a right. I'm just saying it is curious to me. It is very interesting that people will back a guy who engages in pretty wild speculation on things that people find offensive, and he would not stop even though he knew he was offending people. And you're criticizing other people for going over the line. You're not being consistent on defending the right to offend. And that's why I said I'm not going to apologize for this. I object to that on ethical grounds. I defended his right to offend. I just think I thought he was wrong and misleading. And again, I do believe in allowing a family to keep their private life private as long as they keep it private. The minute they go public with it, it's open to speculation. And it's not right to shut down. And I don't consider myself a reporter anymore. But if a reporter were to start inquiring about the location of Mrs. Peterson, that would be fair. That wouldn't be, this is private, this isn't right. No, there's a major missing piece here. And I'm not saying this to, get him. I think that's atrocious what people are doing. I am highly skeptical whenever someone who is not in a position to make decisions for themselves is spirited away to a far-off foreign country with a sketchy explanation. I am suspicious of that. If he had pneumonia when he landed, he may not have been of sound mind to make that decision for himself. Now, I guess his kid, his daughter and husband may have medical power of attorney, so that is their right if he gave it to them. But it is fair to ask, what's he doing that far away from home while he's ill without his wife, when the last we heard she'd made a miraculous recovery? And if she's ill, that's terrible. It's not terrible to suggest that there are numerous explanations more plausible than the one offered, especially when you're dealing with someone who insisted on making offensive speculation regarding people of gender identities he just doesn't understand. And he knew he was upsetting people. He knew he was hurting people. And he didn't have the decency to stop for their psychological well-being, which I admit, from a psychologist, that really bothers me. It's one thing to argue over the nuances of the uniqueness of how gender identity is treated. That is, there is no other condition where people's bodies are altered to match the brain, most try to normalize the emotional or psychological state. That's fair to point out. It is not fair to attack the dignity and deny the human rights of an entire group of people, deny the enshrinement of human rights of an entire group of people based on unfounded conjecture and an inappropriate free speech argument. So I just want to say that to make you think. I'm all for, like I said, I've addressed this. So I'm hearing the criticism. But I have the right. I don't have to blindly accept your criticism. I also have the right to push back on your logic here. So that's what I'm doing. Also, I didn't know what else to talk about today because I'm trying to figure out what to do about the fact that there's a new Sims game coming up, and I'm neck deep in boss fight and birthday not fun stuff, and seeing Hamilton, which was fun. So I'll wrap there. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. If you like things that make you think like this, help support this channel. Thanks for watching.